All right, what up, what up, what up? Welcome to a special night shift. It's Jeff Jaron and the student of the game, Kyle Nash, with you. And we're going to do a quick little NFL draft and post-draft free agency recap of your UCF Knights. As by our latest count, Kyle Nash, we have 7 guys from last year's team going to the league. 2 of them were drafted. We'll talk about Javon Baker and Tylan Grable. John Rice Plumlee to the Steelers, Jason Johnson and Alec Holler both to the Cowboys. Tre'mon Morris-Brash to LA with the Chargers, and late news, Shaun Peterson going to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Kyle Nash, the student of the game. What is going on, man?
Hey, listen, there's been a lot of information. Credit to our black and gold banneret panel for picking 2 that would be actually drafted. Coming up in here doing all that. By the way, still can find those draft previews on blackandgoldbanneret.com.
Yeah, I got to get that. See, I goofed it. I told you I would have that in there, and I just botched it. Anyway, because we have all these banners. We're gonna do a little production today, Kyle Nash. All right, let's get started. First UCF night to go was Javon Baker to the New England Patriots in the 4th round, number 101. I think we all expected him to be the first UCF night to go. Right. He's going to be playing alongside a new quarterback and most likely Drake May, although Jacoby Brissett, Bailey Zappi are already, are back there. But the Pats, went big with Drake May in the 1st round. So he's all indications are he's going to be the, if not immediate starter, the eventual starter. And they got him 2 really good targets in Jalen Polk and now Javon Baker, who went 4th round, number 101. And the way we're going to look at this is just I want to talk about how you feel as somebody who covers the NFL about the fit that each of these guys have.
Right.
And later on UFA guys, we can talk about, what's their odds of making the team. But Javon got drafted in the 4th round. That tells me that the Pats are serious about him. And, even though he only played 2 years at UCF, I think we all kind of got the, we all had the, you looked at him, we're like, okay, that's an NFL guy right there.
Right.
And obviously put up, some pretty high, some pretty remarkable yards per catch numbers. I'll go over those in a second. But, he wasn't like a barn burner at the college level, but you could tell he's a pro dude. So your thoughts on where he went both in the draft and with respect to the Patriots?
Listen, first of all, I mean, when you say not a barn burner, maybe he didn't get national attention necessarily, but let's also
that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. He was also among the top in the conference at the position of the Big 12, where offenses go precisely crazy and allegedly defenses don't exist, right? So the fact that he's able to stand out with that group in a Gus Malzahn scheme, must stress that,
yes,
is a huge factor. Also considering backup quarterbacks being so prominent in these guys, having early and young passers, even within the college ranks, that's going to be some. Javon is used to having to make adjustments to, air quotes, unperfect passes. And if Drake May is even a fraction of what people allege, that will be certainly helpful. I'm not really very high on Drake May. I'm not as against him as I would say a Zach Wilson maybe, but more like a Sam Howell, ironically. They keep trusting ACC quarterbacks. But going back to Javon, listen, the other thing is, too, the ways where I think he'll fit with the Patriots is more because there is no more Belichick. I know for a fact that him blowing kisses at the sideline would have come up from the Oklahoma game over at the combine with Bill Belichick at the helm. Here, I think it matters a little less. Route running ability is a big deal. This could be I'm not going to say he's going to be legendary as like a Wes Welker or a Julian Edelman, but he has a potential.
Randy Moss.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. He's not tall enough to be Randy Moss. He's not going to be that kind of a guy, but he will be the kind of guy that can be. He's not. Listen, he basically had one role in Malzahn's offense. What I think is going to be tested truly is his route running ability to find the stuff underneath. And he did have those games where he had numerous catches. I think the most recent bowl game among them, right? Even though the Knights got killed, It's also another instance where John Rice Plumlee got hurt. And interesting how that works, right? So at the end of the day, I think Baker's a good fit. It won't be enough to necessarily lift the Patriots out of the doldrums, but he could have a pretty nice little NFL career being a guy who's a good returner potential, who could be a third or fourth receiver on an NFL roster.
I love that. There's the wave, by the way. I love the thing that I liked about him was he kind of has that NFL frame at 6'1". He's over 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
The dude just catches everything that comes his way. Yeah, and that's the part that I was, that I was always most impressed with. And you're right. He seemed to be, I'll tell you the truth. My thought on Javon was, he would have been really good in the O'Leary era offenses that were more pro style in that respect. But the speed is, he just made it look, the thing that really impressed me with him is just, he made it look so easy. I mean, it was
him across from Brandon Marshall. Yeah. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the part about him that I was always impressed with. His numbers at UCF, remember 2 years, at UCF overall. Oh man, I pulled up his Patriots stuff. Okay. But last year, 52 catches, 1,139 yards, 21.9 per catch, 7 touchdowns, as long as 86. That was that one against Oklahoma. So do you expect him to be a starter?
Oh yeah, no, he's gonna be. I mean, granted, it depends on what they come out with, but he may not be among the top 2 receivers, but he's gonna get time as the third receiver when they go spread or single tight end.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he has the upside. I think he does.
Yeah.
Now that brings us up to another guy who's in a position where, okay, late round pick, but a good spot, I think, and that's Tylan Grable, who was the other UCF Knight drafted. He goes in the 6th round to the Buffalo Bills at number 204. Kyle, I know you're an O-line guy, and you got something to say about it.
Yeah, listen, I could not be happier for Tylan Grable making this particular pick as it would stand. Like, for all that we have heard about the Bills and the fact that they insist on depending on Josh Allen for the run game, you need a piece of beef that can relocate quickly. And say what you will about Tylan Grable, but he is that first and foremost. I know we don't often talk about 40 times for offensive lineman, Jeff, but for this particular instance, you have to. With what he came up with at the NFL Combine, not many old linemen from UCF, by the way, typically invited to the Combine. There's that. I'm surprised how little we're hearing about Lokai Paoli in this process, by the way. Whole other question. But combine that mobility and all the downside. If you look at all the draft analysis from the major sites, as I mentioned in my draft preview of Tylan Grable on blackandgold.com.
Didn't even give me the golly.
You'll look at it that a lot of the issues that are pointed out are connected to teachable things, intelligence things, technique things, and that's where NFL coaching gets involved to make a difference. So let me get this straight. You have a large human who can move quickly, who has played quarterback in his past and can understand when a quarterback might want to break off and run. And listen, as a guy who played with a mobile quarterback, shouts to my guy PJ Jack with the Orlando Rage of the Southern States Football League.
I knew PJ as a wide receiver, by the way, but that's beside the point.
And listen, at the time I played quarterback with him, he had the arrogance of a wide receiver. I say that to him already jokingly. It's okay. But the punchline being this, as a dude who could take off and run, and to be mindful of that as you're holding a block, you got to be able to read what's happening in the room. To actually, I remember one time, for example, he came back and crossed field. And I just had to know, that's happening, and hit the appropriate guy so he was allowed to finish the path. And that's the kind of intelligence and speed that Tylan Grable would need. Obviously, like I said, the development will be in technique. A lot of problems with sort of some of his arm movement. Mostly, they didn't really like his hand fighting, the punch, and all that. But those are all correctable things. And for a guy getting picked that late, very helpful potentially for the Bills cap room.
6th round, 204 overall.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably right now going to start as a 3rd stringer, but they have him listed at left tackle. Do you see him moving his way up?
I mean, where else would he?
Well, I mean, would he? Do you see him staying? As their left tackle, they have Deion Dawkins over there right now. Ryan Vandermark is their backup. They also drafted a couple other guys as well. Travis Clayton, Cedric Van Pran Granger.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big rebuild in Buffalo, as you know, right now, considering what they've done with the offense. Obviously Josh Allen is still there, but it feels like there's going to be a real transition there. Is he going to be part of that by moving up and either playing the blind side and protecting Josh Allen, or maybe moving to another position?
Well, in his instance, like, again, we make the play on intelligence and talking about that ability, and he even played right tackle. And being super critical of him his first year, by the way, when he transferred in, the leaps he's made in improvement is what you're looking for if you're a scout there too. But as to where he play, listen, at this point, this is a guy who's an injury away, and that's going to be kind of what dictates where he goes, is who gets hurt when. Unless he impresses somebody at camp in a way that I can't account for yet, I don't think he sees a lot of time. But preseason games, watch him closely, how those performances go, how quickly he evolves in that space is going to be what determines the answer to your question.
Okay, so those are those are the only two UCF Knights drafted this year, but it was a busy, really. Remember, it was a couple hours right after the draft. We started getting some news real quick about the UDFAs. And I think once you get to round 7, as we both know, some guys would prefer to actually not be drafted because then they have their choice of where they can sign. Right. The biggest news, of course, was the one that we saw of the ones that we saw. John Rhys Plumlee is going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Much was made, of course, on social media about that. Of course, it's always exciting when a quarterback goes somewhere. And JRP is an interesting case. He made some waves a little bit prior to the draft, Kyle, because remember he said, "I think I'm one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the world." That is always going to raise some eyebrows around the league where they pay for play, as Mike Francesa calls it.
Right.
But again, this is a character flaw with me. I always think of the best case scenario and not the realistic case scenario.
Have you listened to you while watching the game? That's but go ahead.
No, I mean, like in terms of the draft, not in terms of the games. That's a different thing. I usually, it's like a hurricane. I hope for the best and I prepare for the worst. But when it comes to the draft, I'm like, okay, this is this guy's shot. And I can see, of all the guys, maybe aside from Javon, I thought JRP had the best case for making an NFL roster on opening day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two reasons why. Number one, if he's going to play quarterback, okay, you have Russell Wilson, who's running on fumes. And you have Justin Fields, who we don't really know what we're going to get. But here's the other part is JRP fits in the game that those two guys play, right? Short passes, mobile, right? He fits that. Whatever Mike Tomlin's doing there, he fits that mode, okay? And number two, we know the Steelers love them some athletes, like the guys who are listed as athletes in high school, right? You don't really know what position they're going to go to. Okay, you can Antoine Randall him, right? You can Hines Ward him. By the way, let's not forget, Hines Ward played quarterback at Georgia for a time, right?
Excellent point, right?
And I know that's Bill Cowher, but Mike Tomlin ain't afraid to do that kind of thing. So I think this is a real good spot for him. What do you think?
Well, and for the nerds out there, they're going to nitpick your comparison. I don't think John Rhys Plumlee is durable enough to be a true Hines Ward clone, but I like where you're going there. Undersized receiver, better athlete than Hines Ward, certainly a faster player. It's just a matter of, can he find, but let's not take him out of the quarterback position yet. Let me tell you why I don't think he's going to be a quarterback of any sorts this season, and it's specific to the Steelers situation. Now, granted, I think he's got a great case to fight his way for number 3. You stated it best in that he's the right style of quarterback. And I know everybody's critical of Russell Carrington Wilson. I talk about it all the time on the Student of the Game. But Remember, the problem with him in Denver wasn't necessarily the performance in his last year. It was the dollar sign attached to it. So there's that. Justin Fields had showed steady improvement, but then got hurt while he was playing last year for the Bears. Listen, there's a reason why I picked them to win 8 games last year, and they only missed that mark by 1, and that was based on Justin Fields' improvement with, quite frankly, no help whatsoever. Meanwhile, you want to talk about offensive lines and people who have a history of fighting in the trenches? That is Pittsburgh, man. And the only other thing they do beyond that is win a lot. Please check Mike Tomlin and have losing seasons he's had. Let me tell you, it ain't been one in 17 years? But the punchline's this. The thing that's going to...
Yeah, 3 head coaches since the early 1960s or something like that?
Yeah, right. Chuck, Bill, and now Mike. I get it. But I wish more franchises operated like that where appropriate, but that's another question. But to get it back in, what's going to keep John Rhys Plumlee on this roster? I know the other week, going into the draft, Eric Lopez mentioned Denard Robinson. I think Terrell Pryor is a better comp. I would never put John Rhys Plumlee as an NFL running back. It would be, granted, he's a little bit bigger than Adrian Killins, but still that kind of guy.
Wait a minute. He's way bigger than Adrian Killins.
That's
Adrian was 5'6".
That's hyperbole, Jeff. Stick with me on this. Okay. So yeah, he's a little bit bigger than Adrian Killins, but he has that kind of speed, is what I'm getting to, right? And this is somebody who would be a good slot guy again. You're not going to put him over the top because he's not quite tall enough for that, but maybe poor man Steve Smith kind of thing going on here. Granted, he's not as volatile a personality as Steve Smith, but he's going to be that kind of guy that can do the Hines Ward things. He could just do it a lot faster. And in a world where a more mobile quarterback is a requirement for basically everyone you ask that's not named Ndamukong Suh, trust me, I did this experiment, and Jay Glazer, that's typically what you're going to want to see in an emergency weapon type. The only problem with him doing a Randall L there, Jeff, is the same thing that the Saints had with Taysom Hill stepped on the field. When Plumlee's there, they're going to try something probably. So that would be...
Yeah, you're kind of giving away the game a little bit.
Right.
Well, he's listed at 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. Stick him in an NFL weight room. I think the weight goes up a little bit. The speed returns. Not to say that he wasn't fast. I mean, obviously he was, but I'll go back and say, like, I thought that the injury, as much as it stunk last year, the injury was kind of a blessing in disguise for him because he had to stay in the pocket. He had to become more of a passer. He could not rely on his legs to just bail him out if nothing was going on. He had to go through progressions. And I think Darren Hinshaw knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And that will enhance that did enhance his profile as a passer. I think if that didn't happen, the Steelers wouldn't, or maybe no NFL team would have maybe thought about him as a quarterback. And the Steelers picked him because, like, okay, yes, not because they intend, to move him, come hell or high water, but because he could play quarterback or he could play something else. Let's just find a way to get him on the field and see what he can do.
Yeah. And well, I'll put it this way. There was a great mind that thought like you that asked this question of John Rhys Plumlee himself in a post game, and he would agree with you. By the way, it happens to be this handsome guy that's doing the show with you, but no, yeah, he's too has said in a post game that he having to make that adjustment has come to something that he was forced into by having to deal with these ding ups and all that, and having to play a large portion of seasons unhealthy in general.
Yeah, that's true. But I'd say I really like the spot. If you never know, if something happens with Russ, all of a sudden he's the number 2. Mm-hmm. And if something happens with Justin, all of a sudden it's the NFL. You remember what Jerry Glanville said? Not for long.
Yeah, facts. Well, and listen, we mentioned Jacoby Brissett earlier in this podcast. He got to the starting point and earned his prominence by being a number 3 behind Brady and Garoppolo, right? So
yeah. So all right, that takes us to I think this guy was actually the quickest one to go right off the bat, and that was Jason Johnson to the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, Jason was a transfer to UCF was really solid in the middle as a linebacker, in a linebacker core that, by the way, struggled. He really did pull his weight. So he goes to the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent. Where are we going to? I mean, it's hard to gauge linebackers.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of really good tools where if he pulls it together, this could get, he could find himself on. I think he's the kind of guy who we're first going to see him likely special teamer, right? To start out. And then if the Cowboys run into issues in the injury, either this year or they can eventually just kind of move him up, this could get, he could find himself a spot there. No,
I mean, listen, whenever there was a hypothesis as a student of the game I almost write an entire series on about how important linebackers are to a defense and why the Steelers made it look so good running 3-4. Never actually wrote it, but the punchline's this. Linebackers are a big part of any defense. The defensive line's cute, but the threat of somebody coming in from behind is what makes a defensive front truly dangerous. I don't think he could play inside in the NFL is the only thing I say. Look for him to move outside for that. Hopefully that's the thing. UCF with the Knight position being in there, think Justin Hodges, that kind of guy, that you'll see a lot of linebackers cover a lot more often in UCF's defense than a lot of other air quotes traditional running backs. At least that's my interpretation of it. This isn't like a block-footed guy going back to the 2017, like a Pat Jasinski or something like that. This is a guy that can move a little bit, and this kind of fits into the mold of what the Dallas defense has become. But contrary to popular belief and what the national media would have you believe, Dallas is a defensive team now, and they have been for at least the past 2 seasons. Everybody just prefers to talk about Dak, right? Because,
because you talk about the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys all the time.
Yeah, no,
right?
exactly.
That's just what we do here, apparently.
You got it. So, I mean, with all that in mind, with a veteran DeMarcus Lawrence there, Micah Parsons, he has good, let's say, emulations he can aspire to. In my opinion, just because of the spot and where he's at, I think this is the one that has the lowest likelihood to convert into a good NFL career at this spot. But I'm not going to rule him out simply because the dude has shown heart and the dude has shown he can move. He's just got to handle the rest of it.
He's listed at 6 feet tall, 228 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
That's low for the NFL, right? But I mean, he can't, if he is able to put that side, I mean, obviously he's not going to get any taller, but like if he is able to put on, we've seen linebackers that size succeed at the NFL level as long as they have speed and a nose for the ball.
Right.
The guy I think of is, going way back, Zach Thomas, who was
granted
5'11".
Yeah, he was beefier. He had that bowling ball build going for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a good example.
Yeah, there was he's not the only one who went to the Cowboys from UCF. Alec Holler in his way to Dallas. Alec as a tight end. Now, this is a roster that has a lot of tight ends. Alec is listed 6'3", 242. He's got that NFL tight end size right there, right?
Right, especially a receiving caliber one like that. And while Gus Malzahn's offense in the past year didn't really utilize it a lot as a weapon, I think what makes Holler stand out over and above anybody in that Dallas room remembers what Jason Witten was like and probably saw a little bit of a personality carbon copy from Alec Holler. I get it. That there's a connection there. But with that being said, there are so few players coming into the system willing to block the same way that Alec Holler does. I'm not saying that they refuse to do it. We're not quite there yet. But this guy with his blocking form, to me, already has a better form than, let's say, Avonte Davis guy, who was a raw recruit, was still picked in the first round and was an athlete first. Alec Holler's a guy who's going to hit somebody, and doing it at 240 pounds, he's big enough to neutralize or slow an NFL linebacker. Now, trying to chip on a defensive end might be a bit of a challenge today. But, for what his intelligence and his willingness is going to be what gets him over the top if he makes a roster spot. I think special teams is the key, just like you said. And don't be surprised you see Alec on a scout team there in Dallas.
Yeah, they are really loaded up at tight ends, but I do agree with what you say is like his willingness to block is what gets what gets him to that point, in the NFL. Obviously, as we can see here,
I
it's not
mean,
like the kid don't have hands.
of course you would pick the Holy Holler.
I mean, that's the this is his magnum opus. This is his dark side of the moon. I mean, it's still amazing looking at that play when you
See,
really
that
think
angle
about it.
still makes it look like it's out of bounds. It's the other angle
I know it's the
that
toe. It's the
absolutely
toe. It's not the
hits
knee.
toe,
But
exactly.
well, that would have been incomplete at the next level.
Right. But the fact that he has that much swag to do that, and listen, Plumlee did not throw that ball right. Let's be clear. So
Wasn't Plumlee, remember?
oh, right. It was that was that
It's Mikey.
yeah,
Mikey Keene.
right.
Yeah.
I had to
Look at you ragging on Plumlee. Jeez, giving Mikey Keene a pass on
that. Who it was. John Rice Plumlee, King Cole Plumlee, plums for breakfast, whatever. The ball was bad.
All right. He still caught it. So Cowboys, by the way, have 6 tight ends on their roster right now. Jake Ferguson is listed as a starter. They have Luke Schoonmaker, Peyton Hendershot, Princeton Fant. Those are the veterans right now. They also
Princeton Fant's kind of been disappointing. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he was a free agent signing from last year too. I think that's the other thing too. So,
right.
I mean, but if Alec can get himself into that 4th spot, you don't know what those other 2 guys, what those other 3 guys are going to do in terms of their own contract situation. I don't know. We'll see. Again, show up, make plays on special teams. Maybe it doesn't happen with the Cowboys. Maybe it does. Maybe it happens with somebody else.
Well, I'll tell you this, with all the talk about whether or not Dak's going to get an extension and how worried people might be about the salary cap there in Dallas, that works in Alec's favor to sneak his way in because he's cheaper being a UDFA player, right?
Mm-hmm. Number 1 ability is available. I got all the draft cliches, man. I got them all. Number one ability is availability, as they say. So that's a Bill Parcells-ism.
You did if for all the draft cliches, you did not have a thing to say about Tylan Grable's bubble, but that's a whole other question.
I didn't know that. So we got it. How about Tre'mon Morris-Brash? He was a guy that I really liked. He goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. Joins, by the way, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, a former UCF Knight who was not at UCF this past year, but 2 guys who found their way into numerous backfields while wearing black and gold in their time there. Tre'mon is officially listed. They list him officially as an outside linebacker, which makes sense, for the Chargers. Obviously, you have guys like Khalil Mack who are getting old. Denzel Perriman is no spring chicken. Deion Henley actually worked his way into a pretty solid spot there at the left side. But, we're looking at, right now they have Tre'mon listed as the right outside, which is where Mack is playing. Now, obviously, he could probably move around, given if they decide to continue playing at 3-4 out in LA. But the one thing that I think set Tre'mon apart, and I know I've said this before, but I keep coming back to it. I keep coming back to the Boise State game.
Mm-hmm.
And in a close game in the second half, he was dominant in that game without actually making as many tackles as he probably could have, because what I saw, I think it was when the quarterback went out for Boise State. They decided that the only way they could win the game was by running the ball. And the entire second half, I looked at it for 3 straight possessions every down. Mm-hmm. Every time they ran the ball, they looked for where TMB was and they ran the opposite direction. Which shows you the kind of respect that he had for like the chaos that he was able to cause coming from the outside. It's like, we are running wherever he is. If he's on the right, we're running left. And if he's on the left, we're running right. And to me, like that, I'm not a film Nick,
right.
But I got 2 eyes and a brain. I know when I see that, I'm like, okay, they must, if your opponents think that you cause that much havoc that they're like, we don't want any piece of this guy, That's saying something. And I'm guessing that the Chargers scouts thought the same thing that I did when they looked at this film.
Yeah, and there's another guy from the former American Cincinnati's Cortez Broughton, who I was high on. Granted, the game he got walloped at the bounce house for a college game day. He actually left the game, I think, after the second drive with an ankle issue. And if you remember, UCF started out a little shaky. Cortez Broughton leaves, and suddenly they find the light. And of course, that would have been McKenzie's most, I don't want to say, most populated performance, we'll say, right? The most biggest crowd that he was performing in front of there in person. But listen, the fact that people get that, Dr. Evil vibe of, how about new running at you, certainly a requirement if you're looking to get looked at that position. And I'll tell you this, for a dude that size, he moves a lot better than he should. I get him being listed as an outside linebacker. I think they're going to kind of try to advertise him as a tweener, a dude that you could put his hand in the dirt or off the ball. And I'll put it this way. I think his liability would be pass coverage. But if you're at that position with the Chargers and you're modeling Khalil Mack, you ain't covering a whole lot of passes. So I think what they're doing is they're kind of throwing some paws at the wall and see if something sticks, especially considering Khalil Mack's age, just the general aged state of the Los Angeles Chargers front. And in a world where one Jim Harbaugh is coaching, he's looking for dudes that are hungry. I can't front on that.
Yeah. 6'2", 245 is what Tre'mon's listed at. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at Khalil Mack, well, I mean, he's Khalil Mack, right? But, he's listed at 6'3", 269. That's some, that's Levon Kirkland light territory right there.
Development over an NFL career as well, right?
But am I going to get? Is Harbaugh going to throw Tre'mon into the weight room, see if he can put 20 pounds on him without losing the speed?
I mean, that's going to be the test, right? That's what makes him the project, so to speak. I'll put it this way: somebody's going to have fun watching him, and he's going to have fun at camp, and he's going to learn a lot of great things before crushing backfields in the UFL. I think he's a guy that might get back into an NFL camp after his first go. That's kind of my read on it, but who knows? Maybe he impresses somebody.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I hope all these guys get as best shot as possible. But like he to me just strikes me as the best diamond in the rough. Because of the ball hawking ability, because of the fact that the man he was a ball magnet.
And let's give him a little credit. Like, you show a clip there of him against Kansas State. I know there's a bunch of criticisms for UCF's first outing. Everybody seems to forget they were in that game until the fourth quarter. B, that offensive line had 5th and 6th year players all over it.
Yeah.
And still
there was 5 grown men up front in that game. Now, I mean, granted, it is what it was, still lost the game, but it was a pretty serious awakening for everybody out there.
We're evaluating Brash, and he was the dude that seemed already awake coming to this party. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he was so impressive, and I really liked what he brought to the table. So, last one that we wanted to get in here was Shaun Peterson, and Shaun, had limited playing time really throughout his UCF time, but tried to make the most of his opportunities. Listed as a defensive end. Shaun goes to the Tampa Bay Bucks. And this is a fairly he's the last signing that we've seen. In fact, it happened on I believe was it Sunday? I think it was Sunday or late Saturday that he came in. He's probably going to get moved. Officially listed as a defensive end, but I'm going to pull up Shaun's measurables here in a second. But I think this is more of like a camp invite to see what we can get out of him. Maybe we can move positions on him. Right. It's going to be a bit of an uphill climb for Shaun, but he's listed as 6'3", 210 as an edge. When he first got here, put on a few pounds. But again, 6'3". I mean, I'm thinking, okay, linebacker if he can get the speed going.
That's still even a little small too. But what I think he has working for him, he's a pretty wiry dude, right? So one of the toughest blocks one can have from the offensive lineman's perspective, is a guy with long arms that if your technique is even remotely incorrect, a dude with long arms can make you pay for it really easy by pulling you in if you lunge, or if you step the wrong direction, a longer arm makes for a more deadly swing move, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody sees an athlete there that they can mold. He is a project. I think he's a good build for a potential special teams player to at least give himself some value early in camp. I do not foresee, like you said, he's a camp player, and that's fine. I'm sure we would have been all honored to have that shot in some package. I mean, I would have loved it. Heck, I like practicing with some arena guys in my youth. Okay, but the punchline is, I think this is about seeing what he is as a body type and mobility, and see what we can get figured out there too. By the way, joining the core of the Bucs defense, which is arguably the strongest, easily a challenge.
Yeah, he moved up to 240 when he was here. His list, he had a total of 42 tackles at UCF, but did record 6 sacks back in 2022.
Right. Granted, he wasn't at the combine or necessarily. I don't remember his performance at the pro day per se, but this kind of reminds me of a Jacob Harris style pick where somebody saw something in his makeup and maybe the ability to gain that much weight and make that evolution was, hey, somebody said he did that. Maybe we can do something with him.
Right. All right. This is the last part that I want to wrap up here with. Guys, Kyle, who, and you don't have to go into too much depth, but guys who on this current roster, when we get to the 2025 draft that you're looking at, you're going to be like, okay, here's some of the guys we might be taking a good gander at here for the 2025 NFL draft. Who immediately stands out?
It's the defensive tackles first and foremost. Okay. And by the way, I know in the past I've hinted that except Johnny Walker because it's early. Who knows if he has enough of a season? I'm not going to rule it out either. The defensive tackle group, I said it last year too. You probably saw it many times if you were, checking out weekly articles I put up on the blackandgoldbannerhead.com. Bing! But the main piece is this defense started there to try to give the linebackers a chance. Now, if the linebacker growth is real that we've seen from all the transfers and talked about at the spring game, by the way, that article also up at blackandgoldbanner.com, the whole concept, they'll be less necessary. Thank you. And you'll see even more production from them. And the Big 12, again, I can't stress enough, has no fewer than 3, maybe 4 NFL caliber runners on it, right? RJ Harvey, Kansas State guy, and then of course, Oklahoma State's guy, though he didn't do all that great here in the FBC Morgan Stadium game. He still
he got hurt in that game. I think early is what happened.
Right, that too. It's
Gordon from OSU.
Gordon, right, Ollie Gordon, and then it's Gittard, DJ Gittard, I believe, from Kansas State. All pro caliber guys, and I'm sure I could pick out others if I broke open the notebook right now that they've had to stop. On the offensive side, it's tougher for me to find somebody that jumps off other than RJ Harvey. I don't think, maybe KJ Jefferson, if he has a super impressive year, can show that he's that coachable, can get drafted as a late round guy for as much as teams need quarterbacks. But I don't really see that necessarily. He would have to have a stellar year for me to be convinced of that. But yeah,
Kobe Hudson's got a shot. I think if he has the kind of year that Javon had last year, and he kind of slides into that spot, he could find himself in a really good. I mean, he has the same size, 6'1", 200.
Today I have him as a third day guy, but I won't rule it out. He gets on the back of the milk carton a little too often for me. He goes missing a little too much.
Yeah, but to what extent is that the fact that he was the number 2 receiver behind Javon?
Right? Well, exactly, and that's what this.
I mean, there's only one football, so.
And he had some huge games. Let's not act like they were there. But like I said, that didn't make him. I didn't say that made him undraftable. I'm saying that's why I put him third day.
Yeah. I do agree with you on RJ Harvey. I think that the size is a little bit of a thing. but again, if he's able to really, if he has another massive year, I mean, I would not mind having a guy like that, even though it's at 5'9", but like, I don't want to get run over by that dude.
Well, I'll put my fedora on and do my best Brian Murphy impression. Jeffrey, be careful. Okay, be careful.
I know. You're right.
Doing it with size. In this day and age, you just need athletes that can do everything to make that position and have a career. RJ Harvey's that. And maybe poor man's Austin Eckler. I don't know about all that, but I can tell you he does have enough skills to be placed. I mean,
I think he's the middle class man's Austin Eckler. I mean,
okay, be that as it may.
We see that.
We can have political debates about what class to which he's a member, but think of this year's draft and how few running backs actually went early because they weren't up to snuff, over and above the position, air quotes, degrading.
And this might be a loaded running back draft in 2025. Come to think of it, I mean, we might be seeing the return of the pack.
I see what you did there.
Okay.
All the times you've given me a hard times about you come in with.
I fell right into that one. I got to say, I fell right into that one. One other guy I would keep a close eye on, the transfer over from Cincinnati, linebacker Shaun Pace, 6'2", 220, fifth year, grown man. If he finds, if he becomes that kind of ball magnet that UCF is hoping that he is, yeah, I could see that guy. I could see us tweeting him out as another guy who went in the NFL draft. So
I'm always going to be nervous to pick linebackers looking good on film.
I know.
In this conference, that's the problem.
I know. Well, this one's been fun, Kyle. We wanted to get this one up. It's a Tuesday night, April 30th. It's going to be May tomorrow. So
this is the May.
Yeah, if I need to drop another music reference here late in this podcast. But Kyle, thanks again. Where can people see your latest stuff other than, of course, Black and Gold Banneret?
Well, as you're listening to this, the chances are you haven't heard the Student of the Game podcast yet or the Duval Dive. Both of them will be on the YouTubes, but you'll probably be better off finding them on my socials at the SOTG on Twitter, Threads, and Instagram, as well as the Student of the Game on Facebook. Check that out. And by the way, I'll be in the building covering the Orlando Magic's Game 6 in the playoffs there for A7BN Sports as well. So look for
fingers crossed for tonight's Game 5, by the way.
Yeah, it was 1 point differential at half. That's all I can tell you.
Because it's still going on right now as we speak.
Right.
All right. Kyle, thanks again. You can find me at Jeff Sharon on Threads as well. So we head into the off season. Preparing for we have baseball and softball, or as Kyle derisively calls it, stickball.
It's inclusive. It's not a slur. It's to include. It's efficient.
Golf and tennis, and track, and lots more to talk about over the next month as we wind down the spring sports here at Black and Gold Banneret and the Night Shift podcast. For Kyle Nash and all of us at Black and Gold Banneret and Night Shift, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thank you for listening and watching our 2024 NFL Draft post recap here on Night Shift. Until then, go Knights, charge on, enjoy the week. We'll see you.